Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and today I'm going to share with you how to work the center single crochet. Let's go. So this is the waistcoat stitch. You might be saying, Sarah, I thought we were going to learn the center single crochet, and we are. Here's the deal. The waistcoat stitch is the name of the whole entire fabric that gets made up by stitching the center single crochet. So you may have heard it called both things, but it's really one stitch that makes up a pattern of fabric. This is such a fun fabric. I've had people say to me, is that knitting? Is that Tunisian crochet? Because it looks like little V's, which look both like knitting and the knit stitch in Tunisian crochet. But no worries, you don't need to know how to knit or how to do Tunisian crochet to make this gorgeous texture. I also want to say that if this is a stitch you have tried before and struggled with, you are not alone. I took a real in-depth look at this stitch to find out all of the tips and tricks you need to make this stitch work for you. So please watch the video all the way through. It might be a little longer, but I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks you need to make this stitch much easier and absolutely gorgeous. Let's talk about the supplies that you're going to need. My first tip for working the center single crochet to make the waistcoat stitch fabric is that it is a very dense stitch because you're reaching down to the row below, and that can cause a very stiff fabric, which could be what you want. But if you're looking for something less tight and more flowy and wearable, you're going to want to pick a yarn. I have chosen a bulky weight yarn, and this is a bulky weight yarn that's on the heavier side of bulky. And then you're going to want to pick a hook several sizes up from the hook you would normally use for that. The larger hook helps extend and expand that fabric a little bit so that both you can get the hook into your fabric a little easier and it creates a fabric that's a little more drapey and not quite as dense. So for my hook, I have a gorgeous handmade hook that is a 12mm hook to go with my bulky yarn. The center single crochet is a stitch multiple of 1. You can chain any number of chains that you would like. We are going to work in the round though, and so I want you to chain enough stitches that you can join in the round and still be comfortable working. I find joining in the round easiest to do when you work your chains, work a row of stitches, and then join in the round, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with 21 chains, which is going to give me 20 stitches because that one extra chain is going to be my turning chain. So I'm going to chain 21, work into the second stitch from the hook, and work single crochets all the way down my chains, and then I'll be ready to join in the round. I have my row of 20 single crochets, and now I'm going to join them in the round. The way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to make sure that I've kept my row nice and flat. We don't want it to be twisted. And then I'm going to bring them together, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the top of the very first single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1. Finding your stitches in this first row of single crochets can be a little tricky. So I want to show you nice and close up the anatomy of this stitch so that you really know what you're looking for. So the way to find each stitch is to look at the top of your stitch and where the stitches join together. So here's one stitch and there's my second stitch. You're going to look directly below that. So when I turn my fabric flat again, you can see I've got the front loop of my first stitch, and then I have the legs of my stitch. And then if I open this up, you can see there's another bar that goes across. We are going to go between the legs and over that bar to insert our hook. Now, I want you to stick around because I am going to show you the traditional way of making the center single crochet. Then I'm going to show you why you might want to use a modified way and how to work the modified stitch. So we're going with the traditional right now. We're going to insert our hook kind of from right to left through the center there. And then you can see as I turn my work to the back side of the stitch looks like this. And I have my 2 legs of the stitch and my 3rd loop of my single crochet there. And we're going to aim for in between the 2 legs, which is super easy to do with this teeny tiny hook, but a little more challenging with the appropriately sized hook. But that's what you're aiming for. If I turn it right side up, you can also see I have my 2 legs, 1, 2, and my 3rd loop, and I'm going between the legs of my stitch and below that 3rd loop. So let's do it with the correct size hook. Inserting between the legs of the front of the stitch and above the bar in the middle of it, and then aiming back to the left a little bit so that we go through the legs of the back of the stitch as well. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And I'm going to tell you, this tip is the thing that makes working the center single crochet not cause you to go crazy or end up with a whole bunch of hand pain. And that is, since we're working down into the row below, when you pull up your loop, I think the tendency is to pull it right to the bottom of that row, but I want you to pull it up nice and high so that it matches the loop that's already on your hook. That's going to give you some space in this stitch. It's going to give you a more flexible fabric, and it's going to be easier to insert your hook into this stitch once you get to the next round. So then yarn over and just finish your single crochet. So you've worked into the center of that stitch to create a single crochet, which is why it's called a center single crochet. To find our next stitch, we can do the same thing. Find where the 2 stitches join together, turn our work up, go straight down. We've got the front loop of that stitch and the 2 legs. We're going to insert our hook between the 2 legs, kind of right to left. I flip every time. I flip my work towards me to make sure that I'm going through the 2 legs of the stitch. And look there, I wasn't doing it. There are my 2 legs. I want to make sure that my hook goes through the 2 legs on the back side as well to create the center single crochet in the traditional way. Again, pull my loop up nice and high, yarn over, and pull through. You're going to continue working that way all the way around. Keep in mind that especially if you worked this row of single crochets a little tighter, that when you pull on the yarn to work into this stitch, it may shrink down or distort the stitch next to it. That's totally normal. Just keep looking for where your stitches come together, turning your work up to find your single crochets. I'm going to go ahead and work all the way around, and then I want to show you how to work the last stitch because that one in particular can be a little challenging to find. All right, so I'm at my last 2 stitches here. You can see that this is where my stitches come together. I go below, I've got my front loop, my 2 legs. I'm going to work through the center and through the center back. Pull up my loop nice and high, yarn over and complete my stitch. Now, this end one, especially since we aren't joined in the round here, can get kind of funky and pulled or be crooked, but you're going to find it the same way you found the last one. This is a good point to count your stitches to make sure you have the right number too. If you find that you're working around and you don't have enough stitches, especially if you've just lost one, I'm going to guess this is the stitch you skipped. But it has worked exactly the same way. You can see this is my final stitch and this is my stitch, my slip stitch that joined my round together. But we can still find where they come together, go straight below, and make sure we work that final stitch. Once you've worked all of your stitches around, you're going to slip stitch in the first stitch to join in the round, chain 1, and then you're ready to work another round of center single crochets. I told you that I had a tip for a modified version, but I didn't tell you why we needed a modified version. I worked up 2 swatches here to show you why. This is the center single crochet worked in the traditional manner. And if you look at it carefully, you can see that all of my stitches lean to the left a little bit. Now, this doesn't bother some people. It's not super dramatic, the lean, and it can also be fixed by blocking sometimes, depending on the yarn that you're using. However, I have found a way to modify the stitch slightly that gives the same effect of all of those V's stacked together, but as you're stitching, 1, I think it's a little easier to stitch, and 2, the stitches stack really nicely right on top of each other, so you don't have to lean on blocking to end up with nice straight stitches. This is the method that I have fallen in love with and have used for my patterns that are the waistcoat stitch made with the center single crochet. So let me show you how to stitch the modified version. You could, if you're practicing this stitch, just go ahead and keep going on the swatch you've already created, but I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning with my 21 chains and row of 20 single crochets to show you from the very beginning how you're going to insert your hook. I do recommend that if you're swatching just for fun, this would be a great time to try both the traditional and the modified method and work your fabric and see how they work up and decide which one you like better. I'm back to my row of single crochets and I'm going to join them in the round exactly the way I did last time. Go ahead and make sure that it's nice and flat. Bring the ends together. Insert my hook into the top of the first single crochet and join with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm ready to show you the modified version of the center single crochet. We are still looking for all of the same pieces, so you can still go to the top where your stitches join together, turn your work up, see your front loop and your 2 legs. But this time, instead of inserting from right to left, we're going to angle our hook slightly differently. We're going to go through the center of the front of our stitch, but off to the right side of the back of our stitch. So if I flip this up, you can see that there are the 2 legs of my stitch in the back, and my hook is going to go off to the right side of those. This movement is what makes those stitches stand up on top of each other. So let's try it with our hook that's the correct size. I'm going to insert my hook through the center, angle it to the right. I want to be sure I'm going under that 3rd loop, but off to the right side of my legs of my stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop nice and tall again. Make sure you're sliding back so that you're getting it the correct size. Yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Same thing with this one. I'm going to insert in between my legs, aim back to the right, going under the 3rd loop, and leaving the legs of my stitch off to the left. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and work like that. One more thing I want to show you quickly about these swatches is that the modified version does change the way that the stitch looks on the wrong side. So this is the right side of our traditional center single crochet. And this is the wrong side of our traditional center single crochet. You can see that because we went through the center, we still have V's. They don't look quite the same as the front of our fabric, but it is more uniform than with the modified stitch. So when I turn the modified center single crochet inside out, you can see there's a pretty big difference between the two fabrics. So that's just another thing to consider when you're choosing the traditional or the modified stitch. And there you have it. That's how you work the center single crochet. I am so excited to see what amazing projects you make with this fantastic stitch. I hope that my extra tips and tricks help you master this stitch confidently and that you go forward to make some amazing things. I would love it if you liked this video, if you would subscribe to my channel, like this video, and maybe even share it with a friend. Thank you again for joining me today, and happy crafting!